This time I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here this evening. We have a full agenda before us. We'll move to agenda item number 2, which is consider the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? If not, we'll operate under that agenda and move to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3 is considered the approval of the minutes of the last regular city council meeting that was held on October 13th, 2015, as well as the minutes of the work session that was held on October 20th, 2015. Council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time? I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. Motion passes and the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is a public hearing on the consideration of the resolution for the issuance of the healthcare facilities revenue note. This is on behalf of Western Mental Health. Call on Ben Martig to introduce this, and then we have the presenters that are going to be part of this public hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of City Council, we do have Sarah Ackerman, the Executive Director of Western Mental Health Center here in Marshall, as well as Stephen Fenlon, who's with the finance agency involved in this with Midwest Healthcare Capital. We did do the introduction of this last meeting as well, and the City of Marshall basically is serving as a host city of the project because it's located within the City of Marshall, so this is required with this. The City of Canby actually is involved as it relates to the tax-exempt note proceeds, being involved in that tax-exempt note related to the issuance of that. We did have some questions as it related to the bonding from the last kind of meeting, and we did have both our bond counsel and our city attorney weigh in on that review, and that letter is attached for your information that basically indicates that IRS tax code does author the issuance of conduit revenue bonds for the purposes of these types of projects for improvements, so they are eligible under those guidelines, and the city would have no financial involvement in it whatsoever. Rather than getting into the details that you might have on the kind of the mechanics of how it works or questions that you might have, I turn that over to the gentleman who's got the most experience with that, but we can say with certainty that our legal counsel has reviewed the documents and indicated that there is no impact to the City of Marshall directly related to that. Our role is basically to hold the public hearing and make sure that the project is appropriate as it relates to, and to offer the public any feedback that they might have in relation to the project. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sarah to maybe talk about the project and then the financing. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ben, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and the City Council for your time this evening. Western Mental Health Center is excited to be able to partner with you on our bringing our new 2-story facility, which will be approximately 14,000 square feet to our current location at 1212 East College Drive. This expansion is going to be able to allow us to combine our current 2 locations within the city limits of Marshall into one centralized location, which will enable us to be able to fully integrate our array of services and enhance our ability to be able to continue mental health in Marshall. It will also allow us the ability to be able to expand our current staff from about 75 staff to approximately 100 staff. Statistics show that 25% of Americans are hit by mental illness at some time in their life, and we are very appreciative of Western Mental Health Centers of the ability of Marshall to support our project as we look to enhance and expand our ability to be able to provide quality mental health services in our community. With that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Steve Fenlon. I'm with Midwest Healthcare Capital. I've been engaged by Western Mental Health Center to arrange a tax-exempt financing. At 35,000 feet, the City of Canby has held a public hearing, and it wishes to issue a tax-exempt bond to finance these improvements. Because your city has jurisdiction over the site, we're required by federal regulation and state law to have you hold a public hearing. And even though you won't be issuing the bond, the city of Canby can't do so without your permission or your lack of opposition to their issuing the bond. So this public hearing and the resolution you consider after the public hearing is critical to our process. So we are earnestly and eagerly excited to answer any questions you have. My background, I've been doing this since 1978, so I have many more years than I care to remember doing tax-exempt financing for nonprofits. So you may come up with a question I haven't seen before, but I'm hoping not. So with that in mind, please go ahead and ask any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll open up for input as part of the public hearing, and I'll start by saying we appreciate the presence, the investment, the job growth that this project will provide, as well as the services that it's providing. So thank you. Open up for questions as part of input as part of the public hearing. First from the council. Glenn?
I'd like to make just a few comments to start with. At the last city council meeting, 2 council meetings ago, when we voted on this, I voted against it. And I voted against it for a number of reasons, but certainly one of the reasons was it was not put on the agenda until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was on the way to Fairmont and back, taking my mom to a medical appointment. And when things get put on the agenda at the last minute, it's hard to look at them. Because as a council member, I think it's my duty to read and study things before I vote on them. And when the first time I see it is when I come to the city council meeting, it's hard to support something like that. And as I mentioned, I read and study these documents, and I want to make sure that we're doing things the proper way. And so in preparing for this meeting, I went to the Internal Revenue Code and looked at statutes and provisions regarding this, and I went to Minnesota statutes. I do my homework and check things out, and I guess I wanted to explain why I voted the way I did. And I will support it tonight because, after doing my homework, I realized that this is something that is proper and legal and is available to nonprofit organizations. And
Councilperson Bearcolor, I owe you an apology and everybody on the council. We've had 22 city council meetings we needed to process, and my office and the city's office had a miscommunication. Believe me, it is not our practice to ask for anything to be put on any agenda at the last minute. Because I've sat on enough nonprofit boards, and I hold the same view that you have. You have a responsibility to understand what's before you, and if something says I got to be done in 10 minutes, the initial reaction is no. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the comment. The one question I do have is, it's my understanding that to be able to use this funding, new source of funding, you can use it for refinancing old debt.
Yes.
But the old debt needed to be used for, like capital expenditures, acquisitions and betterment. And you can assure us that is the case here. It's not being used for other purposes as far as refinancing.
That assurance is given to you, and I will also tell you that bond counsel, who gives an opinion that we've met all the requirements of state and federal law, has made that close examination, including the original notes and the original loan agreements, and naturally their purpose. So good eye, and yes, you understood clearly, and yes, that is a test we were required to pass, and we did pass.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. That's a first.
Other input from the council? Any member of the audience have input as part of this public hearing? Not it, would entertain a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Larry, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. The motion does pass. We'll now consider then the resolution that would give host approval on the issuance of the healthcare facilities revenue note. Are there any questions on the resolution? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Sarah, maybe you want to just say a little bit more about the project and the schedule and when the activity will start. I know there's already been some preliminary removal homes for this project.
Yes, I'm happy to share that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council, for your support of our project. We really appreciate that as we make a commitment to the city of Marshall and the community that we serve. We're going to be a 3-phase project at this time. As you've seen, we've already had some removal. We acquired the home at 102 Carroll Street, and we already had previously owned the home at 104 Carroll Street. Those homes have been removed. Those basements will be filled in later this week, and then our trees and our landscaping will be prepped for construction. Construction is actually set to start next spring. We're looking at end of April, beginning of May, and then it'll be about a 9-month construction period, hoping to end construction and have our new facility up and ready for operation December 2016, beginning of January 2017 at the latest. Our second phase, which you'll see next spring, will actually be that we'll be removing our administrative offices at 1212. So that's the big white building that you see closest to East College Drive. That'll be phase 2. And then, of course, the third phase will be the construction of the new facility. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
David?
Sarah, you said you're currently at 2 locations. What's the other one?
Yep, we are renting a space on Lion Street at this point in
Where-
time for our
just-
Assertive Community Treatment Team.
General interest, where on Lion Street?
It's 104. It's in the Department of Health building.
Okay. And then, did I hear right that the existing structure you're going to modify or take
So-
down?
Yeah, great question. On our current space, we actually have 2 buildings. We've got an
Right.
administrative building, which is actually an old house
Right.
that used to house several offices, and then we have our clinical offices behind that. And so what will happen is our administrative office, that big white building, will be torn down, and then our new facility will be conjoined to our current
Okay.
clinical space for one facility.
So the current structure will become parking, I imagine? The current structure you're taking down will become parking?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Move on then to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is consider the award of proposal for professional services for the architectural services for the street department ventilation improvement. Jason, you have this?
Thanks, Mayor.
Let me introduce Jason Anderson, Assistant City Engineer. This is your very first City Council meeting to attend in Marshall, so welcome.
Thank you. Well, this proposal involves professional services from TSP of Marshall for the design of a new ventilation system and CO2 and NO2 detection system for the street department shop. The project is necessary to improve the air quality within the working environment of the facility. The 2015 budget includes $125,000 for expenses related to this project. We estimate the cost of the improvements at $85,000, and that does not include design or testing. This project will be funded from the Street Department Capital Outlay account. Staff would recommend that the council award the lump sum proposal for design, plans, and bidding to TSP of Marshall for the amount of $15,700 with construction phase services on an hourly rate basis after that.
Okay, thank you. Questions on this recommendation? If not, I'd entertain a motion on the award for the proposal for professional services.
Make a motion to award the proposal for professional services.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by David. Discussion? Now we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda number 6. Agenda number 6 is the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen for the consent agenda, which include consider the adoption of the resolution adopting the assessment for ice and snow removal, consider the authorization to advertise for bids for the towing and storage of vehicles, consider the authorization for a rental agreement for the training trailer between the City of Marshall and the City of Moorhead, consider the authorization to declare vehicles as surplus property for the Marshall Police Department, and then finally consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the council wants removed for purposes of separate discussion? Right. Number 7. Any other item? So we will remove number 7 from the consent agenda. I'll now consider a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
I move approval of the amended consent agenda.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Larry. Discussion? Jane, are we ready? And we'll move to a vote. The motion does pass. We'll now consider agenda item number 11, which was agenda item number 7. Glenn?
I have a question about the city ordinance here, and I don't know if you could bring that on the screen or not. But it talks about the city administrator shall present to the council at its first meeting after snow or ice has been cleared from the sidewalks, the report of the city thereon, and shall request the council to determine by resolution the manner of collection to be used as provided in subsection C and D of this section. My question is, are we following this procedure, or does this need to be amended, or?
Do you want to give a history? I'd say that's
Following the timeline.
Introduce Tom Melbrook, Finance Director, City Clerk.
Mayor and council members, addressing the question of Councilmember Barakoler. This is the standard time of the year that we do this because this is from the last season, winter season. Summer, if there's any mowing and that type of stuff. In this case, they're all have to do with snow. They are continually billed throughout the year, and the interest does accumulate on the assessments that were placed on those properties, and the people have just chosen not to pay them, so we have the provision to add it on to the taxes. So therefore, we are exercising that right to have it added on to their taxes by adopting this resolution and providing it to the county.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I haven't reviewed in detail this section, but it does appear it probably should be on the list of items to be clarified because that's, I mean, obviously we're not going to bring action from a practical standpoint. This hasn't been the procedure since I've been here to bring that, and it seems like it'd be overly cumbersome for us every time somebody needs their sidewalk removed to have to add that. Maybe it's antiquated and was done many years ago when maybe the city was maybe a lot smaller. So it looks to me like it probably should be added to the list with the yellow note and maybe have a minor adjustment to it.
Greg?
Just a question for clarification. The costs that are coming before us are only the ones that were difficult to collect. They're by far not the extent of the number of properties that we had to deal with for snow removal. We've obviously removed it from substantially more properties than this, and they've stepped up and paid.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Got it.
And again, this covers the lawn mowing, because again, there was several areas I know that did mowing, so those are all paid in advance, or they're all paid up anyway.
These are all snow removal ones, so. Yeah.
All done.
Glenn?
I just wanted to make sure it wouldn't affect the collectability of the fees, services rendered. So, and would encourage us to probably modify that and correct that ordinances in the near future. Thank you.
With that, is there a motion for the resolution adopting the assessment for ice snow removal?
I move the resolution.
Motion by Craig. Is there a second? Second by Larry. Discussion? Now we'll move to a vote. Move on then. Motion passes. We'll move to agenda item number 12. Agenda item number 12, consider the approval of the resolution authorizing the proper city officials to execute the following documents. The third amendment to the transfer membership agreement between the city of Marshall, Avera Marshall, and Avera Health. The first amendment to the 2009 special trust agreement between the city of Marshall, Avera Marshall, Avera Health, and a sponsorship agreement between the city of Marshall and Avera Marshall. This was reviewed at a work session at a city council meeting 1 week ago, and at that time there There was no action at that time. It was a work session, so the action now comes to us this evening. Representing Avera Marshall this evening is Sharon Williams, representing administration, as well as Sonia Kaiser, representing the Human Resource Department. So, Ben, any introductory comments you wanted to make? Otherwise, we'd open it up for any comments Sharon would want to make, and then any questions.
Your Honor, members of City Council, just from the last meeting, basically we have the resolution that encompasses all of the approvals with one action item. I didn't plan on going through the details of the agreement again, so if there are any questions, the attorney was involved in the reviewing of those documents, and we included all the original 2009 documents in here as well, so can answer any questions there might be.
John?
About the only thing that when we talked about it last week, that had just occurred is notification going out to the employees, and maybe comment on what, if there's any reactions, comments, or things that have come out of that.
Sonia, you can address that.
Letters did go out to the 156 eligible employees in the plan. I have heard no feedback.
Actually, I talked to one or two employees, and they're just interested in the meetings that we're going to hold. They didn't have any concerns. Actually, just asking for more information on the plan itself to understand it better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments you have, Sharon?
My comment would be that, this fits perfectly with what the mission of Avera is, to positively impact lives and help persons and communities. And also, it works in with just the overall getting the city moving in terms of bringing more individuals to the community also. So you've got the economic engine of this, and then you've also got the outward individuals involved.
Thank you. Any questions the council has?
I just have a few comments and questions. I noticed that $800,000 is, it says is going to be transferred to the Avera Foundation. I assume that's the Marshall Avera Foundation. Is that correct? And it's going to go to the unrestricted funds. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't make sense to put some restrictions on that money. I mean, do we want it restricted for capital projects? I mean, do we want to just say it can be used for anything? I'm wondering if there isn't any interest in putting some restrictions on how that $800,000 should be spent. There's the 60% of the remaining funds after this is terminated will be going to Avera for long-term care, post-acute care ministry. Other than the fact, I assume that it's probably going to the nursing home and again,
the general comment and the way that healthcare changes and moves, we wanted it to be post-care, which we're not sure exactly what we would have in years to come, but the nursing home is in line for those dollars.
And it indicates that it's for long-term care, post-acute care ministry. Yes, what kind of ministry are we talking about?
Basically, the fact that long-term care itself, if you understand the economics of it, it's something that we actually subsidize through the hospital, and so it's looking at possibly doing something with capital improvements in the future would be one possibility of the use of the dollars.
And when we're talking about ministry, we're not talking about religious ministry.
No.
I think in the materials that we received, it said something like $875,000 of the funds will be used for construction, including the video board for the main ring. Have we found out how much that video board is going to cost us?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of City Council. We don't have any formal estimates on that. Our intent that we have, we're preparing to do a request for proposals for a number of sponsorship items. The video board, we know there's at least two major companies that can provide a video board and scoreboards. And so the plan would be to do an RFP that would include a proposal for them to determine what they feel the appropriate size should be for the facility, and then a cost that would be a part of that, and could also include sponsorships to be inclusive with that. So we don't have any detailed estimates, but no, there's Panasonic and Daktronics that we're aware of now that nationally do this, and both have expressed an interest in bidding on it, and the proposal would include kind of the size. So I would assume the size could really drive the cost, but it would be well within that area, even with a very large video board to be able to accommodate that. So.
In our materials, we have a press statement from Avera Director of Media Relations. And in that press release, it says Avera Marshall will provide $2 million funding for these projects. I'm just wondering how accurate a statement is that. Is it Avera Marshall providing all the funds, or is the city of Marshall also providing funds?
The dollars that originally, came from the transfer of membership. And so you could look at it for the $1 million that's coming from the special committee that's still shared in terms of, the committee deciding how to use those dollars. But those funds do reside with Avera Marshall at this time in our foundation, as well as the $1 million that's coming from the Aero Replacement Fund.
But the $1 million is coming from the Avera Foundation. But $1 million of it is coming out of the pension trust fund. And at the end of the pension trust fund, that money reverts to the city of Marshall. It would end up being the city of Marshall's money. So it's kind of misleading to say Avera is providing $2 million when a good share of that money is coming from the city of Marshall.
And I think it's also fair to say, as was reviewed at the meeting last week, that would occur if no changes are made. The last employee would leave the pension eligibility, which right now could be as late as 2043.
Right.
But these are excess funds that we assume will be there, and any excess funds at the end revert to the city of Marshall.
That
So
is
I
correct.
mean, this is not all of Avera's money that's being donated. And
Lynn, the point being is if you run it out to 2043, maintenance of that fund, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of dollars left in that fund.
well, there has to be, because we're taking $1 million out right now.
But after that,
And if there wasn't going to be anything left, why would we be taking out $1 million now?
the cost of operating that fund and payout is projected to be minimal dollars left in that fund in 2043. That's my understanding.
But I mean, we're assuming it's overfunded by $1 million.
Right now it is.
And I assume that $1 million would be left at the end. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense to keep going. And I think there's a provision in there when the expenses are more than the income that Avera has to do something about it. But I just think that, the city of Marshall is also providing funds for this. It's not just Avera. And I think that needs to be made known. The special committee funds, which is, $1.8 million? They're supposed to be used for health and health promotion needs of the city of Marshall and surrounding communities. What about surrounding communities? Are they getting anything of that money? Have they gotten anything of the money?
Up to date, we've done a few projects within those dollars. They've been items mostly related to Avera Marshall employees or individuals that have used our facility. As far as the future use of that, and this is probably my opinion, putting it towards this project, others from the region will share in that project.
The specific language states and I think your foundation records and documents that the special committee funds will be given to support health and health promotion through grants to the medical center and other qualifying organizations. I mean, that's a direct quote, through grants to the medical center and other qualifying organizations. Is this really a grant to another qualifying organization?
We probably have to look at legal counsel for some help with that. In my mind, yes, it does.
I want to answer that one, Glenn. We talked about that at the special committee, and it was felt at that committee that the use of this facility would go to promote the wellness of the people that are involved in the region and the community, as far as not only physical activity, but also to endow everybody that's going to be involved in this entire thing Problem being is if you let this fund go and continue to grow until the year, 4 more years down the road, all that money is going to go to a Vera Foundation. So then we no longer, as the city marshal, have any control over that money. So we started at $1.5 million and we've spent 75,000, Sharon, is that close, huh?
Roughly, yes.
So far? For whatever reason, that's what it is. So we've grown that fund. So are we gonna sit there and let it grow and then turn over $2 million per se to the Marshall Foundation, the Vera Foundation? Or should we take and utilize that into what we think it was going to promote a Vera in the medical field just through usage of that?
First of all, this money came from the sale of a hospital. And I assume that the spirit of the agreement and the intent of what was done is to use it for healthcare related expenditures. And you said it could go to Avera. Well, if it went to the Avera Foundation, I assume they'd use it for healthcare and not for a sporting facility. Like I said, I think that the spirit of the agreement was that it was supposed to be used for healthcare related items. And I really question whether a hockey arena is all that, was the intent? I question that the intent was to use the money in the future for a hockey arena. I know in the items that were given to us that $225,000 is projected to be spent for a plaza. And I guess I'm wondering, how does $225,000 for a plaza address the health and health promotion needs of our community? This doesn't seem like a good use of $225,000 as far as health and health promotion.
My understanding part of that plaza is the start of all of the walking trails, the bike trails, those types of things.
As was discussed last week, yes.
I know that Avera has stated that while the hockey arena was supported by the majority of the voters of our community, almost 40% of the voters voted against spending money for the hockey arena. Shouldn't the 40% of the voters have at least a portion of the $2 million to be used for projects they believe are more important than the hockey arena? Shouldn't they get it used for some project that they could support? And why is the entire $2 million being spent on this one single project?
I think, Glenn, if you look at the way the thing is wrote, the Vera is stated that they would give $2 million to promote the Red Baron Arena and wellness, etc. So if you look at that, it doesn't say that we're going to give $2 million for the city to use at their discretion wherever they would like it to go. If it's for the Larry Good Retirement Fund or anything like that, they didn't bring that up. I accept that. I think we've discussed that last week and again tonight in great detail. They said we are going to give $2 million to the Red Baron Arena. They didn't say we're going to do it for the city to use at their discretion. I'm going to go ahead and move the resolution authorizing the city to execute the following documents.
Okay, we got a motion on the table by Larry. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by John. Now discussion on that motion.
Well, I still have some questions that I would like to have answered. Am I allowed to ask these questions?
As discussion on the motion, you are, yes.
Well, it affects the motion, and the motion is whether or not the money should be spent for these purposes. I just feel like if I have questions to ask and comments to make, I should have time to do it, and I shouldn't be cut off by members of the city council. I mean, we're talking about spending $2 million here, and I think it's worth some of the city council's time to hear comments and to have questions asked. And I don't think it's fair to shut off one of the council members when he has comments to make and questions to ask.
We're still in discussion on the motion. Any other discussion on the motion? Now I'll call for a vote on the motion. The motion does pass. So Sharon and Sonia, we thank you for your time. I also want to recognize that there was a significant amount of work, in particular, Sharon, that you did in working with the finance people, the accountants, the actuarials, and also working with the employees to be sure that that fund, the retirement fund, was still serves the original purpose, as well as allow this investment. So thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 13. Agenda item number 13, consider the 2015 Fire Relief Association contribution. And I'll ask you to introduce this.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the City Council. The City of Marshall offers a lump sum pension benefit based on years of service. It's common in the state of Minnesota for fire pension benefit levels. The Personnel Committee met last year in discussion, and the City Council acted to set. Basically, we had a number of years where we kind of discussed the baseline amount and the annual request for the increase. There's some years historically there'd be no increases requested. Other years maybe a larger amount. So the council did discuss setting more of kind of maybe more of a fixed cost increase as it related to like inflation or what's done for other personnel type of benefits as kind of a base level. Could be reviewed if things got out of whack to stray from that, but we kind of set a general course of action as it relates to that contribution. So that was passed with a 3%. So that was basically what was presented for review by the Personnel Committee. Just a couple of illustrations here. This kind of shows historically some of the changes. There's a formula that determines kind of a maximum benefit level based on investments and contributions and what's going on within the fund. So you can kind of see annually what that amount is. You can see in some years, depending on what's happening with the account, there might not be any amount allowed at all, so that can kind of complicate things as well. But this gives a little bit of history of kind of where it's at, where it's been over time. A number of years ago in 2013, we did do some kind of, in 12, we did do some comparisons on our pension levels in comparison to our other communities that we use for other benefit analysis and comparisons for ordinances and other types of things. And so this was completed. We're at the top end of that pension level at that time. We've not done any internal updates on that, but if there was a proposal to kind of stray from what we're looking at doing, we'd suggest going through an update, but don't feel we necessarily need to do that every year. This is a schedule of contributions dating back to 2002. Again, depending on investments and what's going on within the fund, it can vary quite a bit. And you know, when you have a lump sum benefit plan, the way that it's structured, you do have some fluctuations within that. For 2016, for the current year, we didn't have any contribution required. And for 2016, irregardless of what you do with the pension benefit, this $21,502 is set for next year. So really, any change in the contribution level from this year to next year would only impact 2017. Historically, we had, in the past couple of years, tried to estimate how a decision on a funding level might impact it. We did some analysis, and it was so far off that we've given up on even trying to do that, because market conditions is probably one of the biggest things that can drive major changes in that. So we've kind of given up on that concept and looked at it more on a comparative standpoint on the benefit level. We have had some limited discussion with the council in the past about going to defined kind of contribution levels and changing our plan dramatically. State law has kind of a process you have to go through that change, and the council hasn't had an interest to go there with that. But, I know there had been some discussion in the past. That's something that if it's proposed would have to be pursued over a period of time and analyzed with that, but seems to be working. The Personnel Committee did unanimously recommend approval of a 3% increase consistent with the past recommendation of $165 per service year for 2016. So the recommendation is included in here for you. We do have members of the Fire Relief here in case there are any questions that you might have. Otherwise, the staff recommendation is to approve the contribution level.
Thank you, Ben. Input from the Personnel Committee?
Larry, you want to take it as the chair, sir? No, go ahead. We did meet and discuss this and talked it over with the representatives from the Fire Department Relief Association. And when we did our discussions last year on this, we did agree to put it in that our recommendation was to follow the contribution increases based on what our increases overall were going to be. And so that's where we came with the 3% at $165, and that was something that in our conversation I think appeared to be acceptable also to the fire department. And I think it's a good place to put us, and I'd like to add that in my opinion, when we look at this really isn't payment to our firefighters. This is more of a payment to their families when they retire for the amount of time and dedication that they give away from what normal people do for their families and with that time, because these guys aren't necessarily normal.
I have a backhanded comment.
That is a left-handed Schaefer compliment.
Any other input from the City Council?
In the schedule, it shows that it used to be that for a number of years it would remain constant year after year. And now it's being changed about every year. I mean, is there a reason we're doing it every year and it's not the same for a number of years? Or we just...
John, you have a comment on that?
I guess,
can respond
yeah,
to that too.
Yeah, having been involved in this for several years in this discussion, I think that was one of the reasons for going to the percentages, because it has been a hit and miss all along. You know, it's really it's kind of being torn between showing the appreciation for the firemen and trying to maintain and balance a budget, and so we get into the discussions of that back and forth. And really the discussion last year that prompted this is actually went on for a couple of years, and saying, okay, these are treated like the rest of our city employees, that we give the same increases that we do all along, and not look at this, well, we're, not enough money this year, so let's not, in the city, there's really never enough money in that budget for all of this, so that's always a tough decision. So this way it makes it a little bit more realistic, and something that's, yes, it can be changed, but it's something that can be anticipated a little bit more and prepared for in our budgeting process.
The other, and that was well said, and the other factor is that there's various members of this association that have different levels of eligibility, and then different levels when they'll be vested within the fund or exit the fund. So if you keep the fund the same for, as happened in a number of those years for 5 years, and then change it, you have a fairness issue with what was the people who perhaps exited the fund in year 4 or year 3 when it was changed in year 5. So having a more modest adjustment, but having that consistent year, rather than doing nothing for 5 years and then making a larger change in one of your current members of the fund.
Right, and then the other piece of this too is that while they're city employees, it's kind of an odd item out, because they're they get paid a pretty base wage when they're actually on a call or at training, but it's very inconsistent. It certainly, other than training, isn't scheduled, and so the only thing that's really kind of a set fix is this is probably the one set that is really probably reverse engineered, that they get their benefit when they leave, not while they're there. And again, for me, with what they get paid by the hour for what's required is just really pretty basic and pretty minimal. And part of the thing is retention. I don't think any of them join the department thinking about the retirement, but I think we can keep them there after they're trained and maybe hold on to them a little bit through some of the strife, is that they get to see that light at the end of the tunnel. So it is kind of reverse engineered, and it's that carrot that we keep out there in front of them that if you stay here and dedicate and you get to the certain levels of vesting, and there's something for you at the end to say thank you for that. And I like the lump sum piece because it's the one way that they can thank their families and kind of reward themselves for what they do, because it really is an odd attitude and mentality that joins and maintains themselves on a fire department that's okay with getting called out at the middle of the night or dedicating their normal time offs to take an on-call. Probably the one most unique profession that we have in the community, even more so than the police department, to turn and go in when everybody else is turning around and going back, and that is not an overused statement. So I guess I'm not ashamed of being on the higher end of where we're at with our comparison communities, and I think maintaining some type of I'd rather do the percentage, and I really supported the percentage and lobbied for it last year, and I believe that it's very equitable to do that, as keeping this fund maintained and saying thank you to them for what they do, and then having it in a fund that they're very wisely managing. When you look at what they get and what we contribute to it, I think that's an attest to that they take it serious and do their side of it too.
Other questions?
I have a question. This was posted at 1 o'clock today. Is there a reason this couldn't have been in the packet sooner?
No, Your Honor, I just didn't get that completed in time. I apologize for that.
Because I certainly support the firefighters, and I really appreciate the job they do. I mean, it's an important job, and we're fortunate to have the individuals we have on the fire department. And I certainly want them treated right, but I do have concerns when something like this is put on the agenda towards the last minute and we're asked to vote on it. And I don't think it's good policy to do that.
And I would agree with you, Councilmember Barakoler, and I agree with that, and I do like to see it on early. One thing I'd like to say, as not a defense but maybe a comfort piece, is that this did come in front of the Personnel Committee, and we did meet on it and unanimously agreed to recommend moving it forward. And secondly, this is exactly what we moved on a year ago for the remedy to this, to put it on the percentage, and this is right in line with that city percentage. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and move recommendation 1 to approve the 2015 Fire Relief Association lump sum contribution in the amount of $5,665, which is a $165 increase that is 3%.
Okay, motion by Craig. Seconded by Elaine. Discussion?
So would this amount be comparable to what other cities are doing then?
Well, the comparable data is included in your from the old information. I haven't updated it since 2013, so we'd have to go through the analysis, but I would assume it'd be similar to what's shown on there.
Glenn, are you asking, is the increase comparable or is the total amount comparable?
Total amount, we're certainly at the
upper end
of what the benefit level is compared to many other. Other discussion on the motion? Now we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 14. And item number 14, consider the approval of the special assessment related to the Varsity Pub project. Jason, do you have this?
I'll handle this, Your Honor. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council back in 2014 approved a development agreement related to the parking lot improvements for the Varsity Pub. Did outline a plan for them to pay for the cost of the improvements to the parking lot, and then we offered a assessment rate of 4.3% over 8 years to repay the full cost of that. The city is recurring some of the costs. Some of that relates to some of those extra sidewalk replacements, and then, and historically in the downtown too, we share in some of the approach work costs and those kinds of things. So this is the final breakdown. We could act on this next meeting as well if you'd rather, but we wanted to kind of pull it together, and we'll be sending it off to the pub to basically offer one of two things: either to pay the full amount pay it off kind of concurrent with the closing of the property sale that will be coming forward, or alternatively, it could be put on the special assessments, and then they basically can pay it over that time period as it's outlined. There is extra detail in here. We don't typically show that on the assessment parts, but I did attach that as well. So that full amount will be paid. The additional amount that was authorized for the city's cost will be paid for federal CRIF funds, kind of related to the demolition and rebuilding of the infrastructure on that lot. So that's tied together. So that is our other source of funding with the related project. If they don't, if the, I guess it's the Three-Legged Dog actually incorporated as the formal name, but I think everybody refer to the project as the Varsity Pub project. Basically, as it relates to it, if the payment doesn't occur by November 15th, they'd have to pay the full interest for the remainder of the year from the 15th to the end of the year and all of next year. So that'd be one benefit of them paying it off. They are seriously considering some private financing, so it might get taken care of, or we won't be doing any of this. But we'd be using dollars from our internal funds and actually be probably generating greater return on investment than what we get currently in our bank investments. So recommend approval. Alternative action could be to put it on the next agenda and approve it on the 10th as well, but we'd recommend approval this evening.
Okay, thank you, Ben. John, you had a question?
I never really, well, I guess it was a question, yeah. This is really the agreement that we talked about a year ago when this whole project started, that the only thing we are doing at this point is just entering the final dollar amount in that. Is that?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
So this is
Yes.
just wrapping up that last piece.
Right.
Other questions?
Well, again, this is an item that I'm seeing for the first time here, and it's, the last item on the agenda was short enough I could study it and analyze it and make a decision. I haven't had time to reread these documents, so I'll abstain on this one.
Any other discussion on or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion on the special assessment related to the Varsity Pub project.
I'll move the resolution.
Motion by John, seconded by Larry. Discussion? Now we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 15. Agenda item number 15, consider the request by Ziegler Cat for a variance adjustment permit to install signage exceeding the maximum size permitted by city ordinance. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take this one. Ziegler Cat would like to install signage that would exceed the maximum area that's permitted by city ordinance, and you can see on the screen there that's the sign that they're looking at installing or something similar. The total sign area that's permitted for the zoning district is 154 square feet. The maximum signage is based on property frontage. The new proposed sign would put Ziegler Cat at 249 square foot of total signage. Similar property with the same use across the highway received a variance in 2013 to allow 202 square foot of signage, and that would be a 22% increase over what their permitted amount is. Because that 22% increase was allowed across the street in 2013 or across the highway, city staff recommended to the Planning Commission that a 22% increase could be allowed in this situation as well. At the October 14th meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval for 202 square foot of signage to the City Council, and that would be the exact same amount that was granted on the other side of the street. So I guess with that, I would just say that the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council approve a request for a variance adjustment permit for installing signage exceeding the maximum size allowed by city ordinance by 31% to a total of 202 square feet.
Thank you, Jason. Glenn, as liaison to the Planning Commission, any comments?
I have no comment.
Questions on this?
Was there any opposition at the Planning Commission? Did anybody come to the public hearing and speak against it?
I would also mention that I wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting, but Ilya was, and he's here as well if you have any other questions for him.
Glenn, you can address
There
that.
was no opposition, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Either the public or the planning commission.
If not, I would
I'll move
entertain
the
a motion.
recommendation.
Motion by Larry,
Second.
seconded by Craig for the request for the variance adjustment permit to install the sign exceeding the maximum size permitted by city ordinance. Discussion on that motion? Now we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 16. Agenda item number 16, Southwest Minnesota Regional Amateur Sports Center. We have change orders to consider. In fact, there's a number of change orders to consider. Ben?
Your Honor, members of the City Council, I think Jason's actually prepared to cover this one. Glenn Olson's been managing kind of the project change orders and construction schedules, so I'll turn it back to Jason.
Yeah, my apologies, Jason. I should have looked through you.
No problem, thanks. The change orders have been prepared, reviewed, and recommended for approval by Wank, our construction manager on the project. There's 2 change orders on the table here. Change order number 2 for earthwork with RNG Construction results in a cost decrease of $3,000. This deduction is the result of allowing crushed concrete in lieu of quarry class 5 for sidewalk base material. It was just decided that we didn't need that material, that more expensive material for the sidewalk base. Change order number 5 for painting with Steinbrecher Painting results in a cost decrease of $1,080. This deduction is the result of no longer needing to paint in areas where tile was change ordered into the project. So no reason to pay for paint that we're not using. So approving both change orders would result in a cost decrease of $4,080. Staff would recommend that the council approve change order number 2 for earthwork and change order number 5 for painting.
Jane, we can handle this in one motion. Okay. As Jane's working on that, is questions on this?
I probably better tell you that I'm pretty impressed when I went through this and I saw 2 change orders and then I had my little meltdown and then I saw deduct. I was quite excited about that. I thought maybe I'd fall asleep there for a second. So if you're ready for...
See, this may be the one time that Larry votes for a change order.
So Larry,
That he makes the
I'll move the
motion.
recommendations.
okay, motion by Larry. Is there a second? Second by Elaine. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. That motion passes. And agenda item number 17. Agenda item number 17 is the salt sand storage facility. We have a final payment application to acknowledge with Susner Construction, the general contractor on this project. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. The salt and sand storage facility replaces the old storage area with a new 65-foot wide by 80-foot long facility with 3 reinforced concrete walls, an open front, and a clear span fabric roof structure. All the work has been completed in accordance with the project specifications. The city's consultant, TSP, has recommended approval for the final payment. The original contract amount was $173,500, and there have been no change orders on the project. Staff would recommend that the council acknowledge the final pay request in the amount of $8,675 to Susner Construction of Marshall.
Thank you. Any questions?
Again, I was pretty impressed with this as we worked on this salt storage shed for a long time trying to figure out what we were going to do with it. When we finally did design it, and we got it designed, and we got it built, and we have no change orders. I'm going to recommend the final payment request.
Motion by Larry,
Second.
seconded by John. Discussion? There's no discussion. We'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Jason, I think that was your last item for this evening, and everyone passed unanimously. So you've had a good night.
You better mark that down.
We'll
I'll
move
be
that
sure to thank Glenn for the items too.
We'll move then to the Next agenda item, which is agenda item number 18, consider appointment to boards and commissions. The City Council did meet earlier this evening, and based on the applications and the interviews that the City Council conducted at the earlier meeting, I would recommend that Carol Purrington be appointed to the Convention and Visitors Bureau to an expired term that will expire on December 31st, 2018, and that Jennifer Andrews be appointed to a full term on the Community Services Board. And I'd offer that as a recommendation to the council. Entertain a motion to affirm.
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Larry. Discussion? One appointment to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then in the interview process, the council recommended, knowing that there was an opening on the Community Services Board, that an applicant be appointed there. Other discussion on the motion? Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other
Made and
discussion?
seconded.
Second.
Oh, it was already seconded.
Okay.
So then let's move to a vote. And that motion passes. Agenda item number 19. Agenda item number 19, Commission Board Liaison Reports. Fire Relief Association had their quarterly meeting last Wednesday morning. One of the purposes of the quarterly meeting is to review the status of the fund, and of course the status of the fund is 60% approximately invested in stocks, and the other 40% in bonds. And because of the performance of the stock market, there was a downturn in the performance of the stock portion, which largely has caught up since that end of that quarter, which was September. So we're back to where we started at the beginning of the quarter, but that's kind of the nature of everyone's 401k accounts in the past. The Regional Development Commission meets next Thursday. Craig?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Larry?
Because of the long meeting we're going to have tonight, I'm going to read your digest version. Personnel Committee met with the fire relief thing, we went over that. Reviewed the health care plan for the city. Elno met, went over the liquor ordinance. We'll be working on that, I think, by soon anyway, by next one. EDA met and okayed the lots over in Parkway 2, combine those into 4 lots instead of 5, and there should be construction taking place there early next week to allow a couple bigger houses, and one of those supposedly has been sold. And I've already, of course, worked with the city of Tracy and the Marshall and the area for EDA, working 32 hours a week. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Glenn?
Nothing to report.
John?
The Utilities Commission did meet, and they're working on their budget. They did pass a change for their salaries for the year, so their portion of that for the employees is taken care of. Now they're working on they also worked on some of the capital equipment budgets, and they're wrapping up the rest of it to be probably completed in November, December timeframes.
Thank you, John. David?
None of my boards have met.
And Elaine?
The 2 commissions that I'm on have not met since.
Okay. We'll move on then to agenda item number 20. Agenda item number 20, council member individual items. Craig?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Larry?
I have none.
Glenn?
I just have a couple items here. The city administrator sent a memo dated October 23rd regarding the arena and expo. And I was noticing on here that the voters were promised the sports arena would cost $12.94 million. In the city administrator's recent report, the total cost of the arena will now be almost $16 million. That's a 23.5% increase over what the voters were told it was going to cost. In his report, he indicates that sponsorships would be about $900,000. In the literature provided to the voters, it was said that the private donations would be $1.5 million. I assume that his numbers will change because of the money coming from the hospital funds. The voters were told that the local share of the cost of the arena would be $7.44 million. His report indicates that the local sales tax share would be $10.5 million, which is a 42.2% increase in what the voters were told. This is from the literature that was given to the voters before the vote, and here's the most recent report. And it seems the voters were promised one thing and the city is doing something else. Somehow the numbers just don't add up.
David?
Last Friday, I participated in a conference call for the board of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and we gave them unanimous authorization to proceed with the lawsuit against, or appealing rather, the adverse ruling from the EPA about the pending regulations on groundwater. So more to come on that.
John?
Nothing, my end.
Three quick things. The first would be this afternoon. I was a guest on Elaine Conyers' television program. Which is you do that once how often?
Every week.
Every week. So, and it's a half-hour program. She lines up the guests on there, and so it's a thank you, Elaine, for the continued commitment and work that you do on getting that out. And I do also understand that, it's has quite a bit of viewership too. So.
No, with the new director out there, they're running that program 15 times a week.
Oh, yeah. And I appreciate being on there. It's a good chance to update on all of the projects and activities that are going on in the community. Tomorrow there's a workforce summit will be held at Southwest Minnesota State University, focusing on needs of employers and recognizing that employers are having issues with finding available workforce. In fact, this morning I met with the CEO of the Schwann Food Company, and he's indicated that their company in Marshall has 50 open positions that they have not been able to fill. I think that's indicative of other job openings that are available from other employers too, which kind of underscores the importance of the alignments that are gathered for this workforce summit, that be in higher education, K-12 education, as well as the employers and the various training that is necessary. So just put a last-minute promotion in that anyone who is available, that I think will be a good day spent on working on that issue. With that, I'll move then to agenda item number 21. Agenda item number 21, staff reports. Ben.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of City Council. I did receive a voice message today by Marty Seifert, who, as you know, is working with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, encouraging us to send somebody to their fall conference on November 12th and 13th. Of course, council members direct us serve on that. The board of directors now is unable to attend that conference. I'm unable to attend as well, but if we do, if other council members, we do set funding aside. If your schedule permits, we certainly would offer that ability. So I wanted to take the opportunity just to say, it is a little bit closer in Alexandria. So if anybody has interest, you can look at attending that. I wanted to pass it along, but certainly we do have good representation there now with our new council member engaged with that. Mr. Olson is at a conference, so that's where he's at today with the MPCA. Or wait, no, that was the MnDOT conference, I believe he's at today.
I believe it's the City Engineers
Yeah, City
Association.
Engineers Group. So we are working through punch list items on the liquor stores continuing to, with construction. We're working on punch list items on the Merit Center still, so we have not received the temporary certificate of occupancy yet. We're still working through there with the contractor. Expect that to be in the very near future to get to that point. We do have an inspection scheduled on Friday for the liquor store project and expect that there will be a punch list items. We are tentatively looking at November 16th as the open date on the new liquor store, so we'll have a couple of weeks for opening. We have been posting things on Facebook, like pictures, but I am going to have a city administrators group where kind of the city administrators in the region do meet typically down in Wyndham for one of the groups that I am involved with. We actually are hosting it here in Marshall this Thursday, and they'll be taking a look at Sports Center project, and one of the Worthington's actually looking at a new liquor store. So their city administrator wanted to look at ours in construction, so we're going to take a look at that one as well. Which also kind of moving along with Worthington, they've been kind of following some similar issues with the mall redevelopment down there. We did meet again with the developer again today. It is still progressing, and expect to be having some information coming back to the council in the near future, and giving some updates kind of on the project schedule. It is still intended to move forward, so so that is moving ahead. A little bit of delays on that. One of the things that we're working through is some plating issues that one of the individuals on the plat who is not directly involved in the project has not signed the plat, which all of the agreements are tied to that, and so that's been one of the causes of the delays, and so we're kind of working through that as well, but expect to have some more information in the near future for that to progress ahead. So we're still excited about that project and tracking it along. That's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Ben?
Then I have one question. I was by the liquor store on Sunday, and the glass facing downtown, there's one of those that's boarded up. Was that a cost cut thing?
Yeah, I assume that's a serious question. So yeah, there looks like there's a panel. I didn't ask specifically on that what's going on, but I'm assuming there was either for some reason that one needs
The glass got broke.
But I don't know, or you never know. There might have been an error with it or a problem. I'll check on that one though and back to you. The glass is one of those that has been a delay though, a little bit frustrating. That's one of the things that's kind of held back some of the work. But fortunately, it doesn't impact a lot of the other work on the inside, so everything else can move ahead. The only other thing probably is some of the carpeting work and some of the door security things that our local company does, so the door alarms can't get done until the door work gets done. So that's probably one of the biggest ones that we're hoping continues to progress along, and we're tracking pretty closely. One of the things, if you drive, that you might notice now is we've got basically all the signs are functioning now. So as of this morning, I noticed even the illumination on the walls there, and it's one of those things. I know the council talked about, are you going to be able to see the signs from the highway? And the monument sign, obviously you can't. I think the message board side you might be able to, but the one on the building really turned out well, where I think you're going to see it pretty clearly from quite a distance away. So I think the sign company that we worked with was very happy with the end result of it, and I think it worked out good. So we're excited as it kind of comes together and look forward to it. There'll be things too that we probably won't decide absolutely until after we're open, like interior design stuff. There's not a lot of wall spaces that you work with on a liquor store, but we'll probably kind of leave some of those things to figure out as we go ahead. There's been some suggestions. Could we do some mural type things, maybe some historical photos of the city, or how can we kind of personalize it to the community a little bit? Sometimes that's best to kind of look once everything's kind of finished and bring in some people to help you with that. So it won't be finished when we're up and running. There'll be little things. Some people won't even notice that, but we're moving ahead there.
Any other questions? If not, then we'll move on to agenda item number 22. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably just touch on a couple of the more visible projects. The
Okay, so I'll
first,
have you get the microphone close to you.
Oh, sorry. I'll probably just touch on a couple of the more visible projects. We'll start with the pedestrian bridge. I would say the soonest you can expect that intersection to be opened up is probably November 13th. November 20th, maybe more likely. The contractor's still waiting on some grill work, some steel to arrive, and at the earliest he would expect it in a week and a half, and then he's still got to get it put up. And to do that, he needs the crane set in the middle of the road. So for safety's sake, they'd really like to keep those jersey barriers, those concrete barriers up to protect their employees. So as far as opening that intersection completely, I would say November 13th would be the soonest. They're also still waiting for the striping company to come in and do road striping and things of that nature. What you can expect to see over the next week is some hand railing being installed, light poles, and then it's just some miscellaneous concrete and grading work. A Street and Redwood. A Street and Redwood will likely receive their first list of pavement next week. We'll probably leave the Ware course, the final lift, until next year due to running out of time for one, and then just let the project settle out. There's a lot of underground work. There's no harm in waiting. But it will look more complete, I would say, next week. So.
Does that include Redwood Street also?
Yes.
Okay, any questions? Now we'll move on then to Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A few updates. As Councilmember Doom indicated, EDA did approve the sale of 5 lots in Parkway 2 for development. That was approved on Wednesday, and we closed on Friday, received payment, and I think they hoping to start digging the first basement to start construction. So it'll be the first development out there since I think 2008 was the last home that was developed in the Parkway 2 addition. And now with the approval tonight of the special assessments, we'll proceed to close on the sale of the property to Three Legged Dog that we talked about earlier. And I think it was last Thursday or Friday, a large packet of papers came to my office from the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Apparently the state of Minnesota was one of 13 states and 2 cities involved in a federal class action lawsuit against United Parcel Service dealing with some, I don't know, it was some fraud. They said, well, you pay for a higher level of service than you really received. And out of all of that, the city of Minnesota received $10.50 as an additional settlement out of there. So additional money went into the city coffers this week. That now, understand, $3.50 certified mail to send out a $10.50 check. But it was... So, yeah, so additional $10.50 came in. That was unexpected.
But the good news is you had to open that and process it to Tom under your salvage agreement, so we don't pay you any extra for that.
That's right, yep. This is all taken care of under the, yeah. No, it was just, yeah. There we go.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any question for Dennis? If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 24. Pending agenda items. Any questions on the pending agenda items?
Can I raise a question? It's
Yes.
not exactly under the pending agenda table, but looking on the calendar on the right side of our screen, we clicked on November 10, which is highlighted, and it does anticipate an HRA meeting at 4 o'clock. Is that still the plan? Or is that like a placeholder?
I think you're on, members of the council. There was something coming up. I need to remind myself what it is. I think it's on there. We have a decertification of a tax income financing district that we would like to have scheduled if possible. If there's an issue with scheduling, we can see if we can find an alternative time.
Oh, that's fine. I just hadn't seen it anywhere else, so I thought I'd ask.
Kind of came up, I believe, in the last couple of days, so we like to get it out there, but we probably haven't passed it along in detail to you yet. Yeah, it might be more like, if this is the only agenda item, we might do 5 or 5:15.
Thank you.
Any other questions on pending agenda items? Not agenda item number 25. The information items that you see include building permits. Then I'll move to agenda item number 26. the determination to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute related to union contracts. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. The motion passes. We'll now go into closed session. We will be back into open session. I anticipate there'll be action.
We might or might not have action, but we'll be opening it up either way.
Okay, I'll bring us back into open session. We are on agenda item number 27, which is to consider the employer contribution for the 2016 Employer Group Health Insurance Plan. Both 27 and 28 were topics of discussion in the closed session. We do have a recommendation before us related to health insurance that would have the total cost to the employer as an increase of 3% for a total of 2015. That calculation would be that the single employer contribution would be an annual amount of $7,219.11 and family employer contribution of $16,711.42. Ben, any additional detail you wanted to add on that?
Just recommend to also review with our consultant as part of that motion as well, as part of the requirement of the approval with Chakosky Insurance Services to make sure there's no impact or to get his advisement as to the impact that there might be related to the Cadillac tax.
Okay.
I would move the recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by David. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Voice vote, please.
I think we're back in.
Oh, okay.
No, someone has to operate that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so voice vote.
Tom can't operate.
All those in
What's up,
favor,
Tom?
say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We'll then move then to agenda item number 28, which Ben, thankfully you can do.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the City Council, recommendation to approve the employer single dental contribution of $34 per month and an employer family dental contribution of $94.48 per month as part of that. And the impact to the employer would cost $11,860.32 spread over 2 years because we have a fixed cost with this for the next 2 years. With this, that's based on the current single and family membership that we currently have within the city.
Questions?
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Craig. Discussion? Larry?
Larry and Craig.
Just a point of clarification, the motion should also include the higher deductible option as well.
Great.
Noted.
75 and 150.
Yep. 50, 150.
50 and 150.
50 and 150, I'm sorry.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 29 then would be the upcoming meetings. Any questions about the upcoming meetings? Which I believe next Tuesday we do not have a meeting. Is that
Right,
correct?
that's the plan.
Election day.
And then that brings us to agenda item number 30 to consider adjourning the regular session this evening.
So move.
Motion by Larry,
Second.
second by Craig. To adjourn, discussion, voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll reconvene in the budget work session.